Stillness in the Storm blog. Monday, March 7, 2016. David Wilcock update: just say no to partial disclosure. Here's the latest update from David Wilcock.
I also covered the partial disclosure topic and what we can do about it in the below linked article. Related: David Wilcock and Corey Good, History of the Solar System and Secret Space Program, Notes from Consciousness Life Expo 2016. It appears we are at a critical juncture in history, when our choices as an awakening population will help shape the next era of life in this part of the galaxy for the ages to come.
By Justin. An agent for consciousness evolution.
Just say no to partial disclosure. High-level briefings have now revealed the powers that are attempting to push for a partial disclosure timeline with a 100-year rollout period. Thanks to the efforts of the Alliance, they are being forced to let go of a great deal of their power, but this is definitely not the future we want. The knowledge of this predicament, and of how it depends on us, has had profound implications on the personal level as well. That is the main focus of this article before we get back to reporting on the greater planetary and celestial aspects of the battle for disclosure. This article is also intended as an apology and explanation for why we haven't written a major article in about 100 days, as a dream pointed out this morning. Why has it been so long since David posted something? First of all, this article is strictly personal until near the end. Not much new information here unless you like transient gossip and want to know the dealio. Wait a minute, you're still reading. Are you sure you want to do this? Okay, fine. Go ahead. It's just fine. The real article will be finished soon enough. It will be more of what you are accustomed to seeing here, with lots of links and insights. No matter what costs of negative greeting are involved, I am going to blast through it. Period. You will understand why I am saying this as you read on. Our next piece needs an entirely new intro in order to make it as current as possible and relevant to what is happening. Our last major article on this site was at the end of November, right after Turkey, a NATO ally, shot down a Russian jet that was defeating ISIS. Disclosure Showdown was very well received. It also caused a massive increase in the attacks I encountered in my personal life. Since these are personal by definition, I cannot get into details, but when combined with an extremely busy schedule, it has made things crushingly difficult. Lots of different things going on. One of the things I can discuss is how I ended up getting the same massive flu 4 different times. The 4th round is happening now and is the lightest. The curse is a raw sore throat, raw sinuses, green mucus, body aches and powerful fatigue, requiring massive sleep and double the normal level of hydration. For some reason it never makes it down into the lungs that much. It's all up in the nose, the sinuses, and the throat every time. I most definitely believe this is an all-American domestic blend designer virus. What makes it so sneaky is its incredible ability to hang on and keep returning. Corey Good's challenges have been more dramatic and documentable, including a Chinook military helicopter circling his house which he filmed. We displayed this footage in our on-stage joint conference debut at the Conscious Life Expo on Friday, February 19, with over 275 slides. We had the largest crowd in the 14-year history of the expo, and this required an extra half hour just to find everyone a proper seat. We initially thought we were going to have to run the same event twice just to cover everyone who had paid for a seat and was still queued up in the hallway. We put a heck of a slideshow together, and our joint presentation and overview of Corey's testimony was extremely well received. The other two major talks I gave after this were heavily affected by the intel we have been given recently, including getting different titles and content. More on that later on. Let's just state the obvious. It may seem like a happy problem for someone to be regularly featured in 5 different television shows, but it is an incredibly great deal of work. This is not making me rich either. The permatrolls who are paid by groups such as the NSA to attack us are likely making more than I do. Corey is still barely getting by, and would not be able to continue without your generous donations. For that we are very grateful, and we do thank you. The reality is that so much of this work to defeat the cabal has to come from a financially strapped grassroots level. Conferences actually generate the best funds for operating expenses. I am so busy now I hardly can ever make the time to do any. Anyone who says I have disappeared off the internet for almost 100 days to make money has no idea what they are talking about. The silence kills. Ancient Aliens gets tremendous exposure. Two of the shows I am in, Ancient Aliens and America's Book of Secrets, are seen on regular TV, such as the History Channel. Ancient Aliens has been the #1 show on History Channel for years now, airs constantly, and is seen worldwide by millions. That being said, the TV business is in such trouble now that the pay for being in such a show is astonishingly low if you even get anything at all. You are told that you are paid with publicity, and what you do with that publicity is up to you. This is now standard across the industry. Much of it has to do with illegal downloading and the massive amount of free content that is now out there, coupled with the so-called Great Recession, trademark. Jim Hart, my partner on the Convergence film, saw one of my Ancient Aliens question lists and said it was as complex as a PhD dissertation. I am in almost every episode of Ancient Aliens, for a total of about 80 so far and climbing. I now get recognized almost everywhere I go because of it. On Thursday, I couldn't understand why the guy at the Jiffy Lube was so smiley and kept asking me what I was doing tonight until he said History Channel. It's a true story, and no, I am not making any homoerotic jokes here. Geez. Get your mind out of the gutter. I am happily straight, and all the female attention at this conference was quite satisfying and gave me an incentive to do more events. A Convergence update. As a side note, we are now finally doing a massive rewrite of Convergence to work in much more of what we have learned since Corey arrived. If it goes into production and gets made the way we are now outlining, I feel safe in saying it will be a modern sci-fi classic. It is very exciting, and we are expecting to have a new and finished script in the near future, hopefully within a month or so. Jim's list of contacts can get us to anyone and everyone. We are not selling out to cabal-based usual suspects in any way. Never will. It has become much more of the kind of movie I always wanted it to be, unapologetically sci-fi, bringing in Ancient Aliens, Ascension, the Cabal, you name it. Jim is an A-list screenwriter who wrote Contact and other legendary films. All of my work developing this film since 2006 has been unpaid. Again, I only mention this because of paid permatrolls who will assert otherwise. 3 shows on the Gaia Network. Additionally, I have 3 shows on the Gaia Network: Disclosure, Wisdom Teachings, and Cosmic Disclosure. 2 of these shows, Wisdom Teachings and Cosmic Disclosure, present completely new half-hour episodes every week, right now and on into the future. There is a great deal of precious intel that makes it into Wisdom Teachings that I haven't had time to present in any other form. Cosmic Disclosure is now more popular than CNN in terms of actual viewership numbers across the entire network. Currently I am giving real-world data to back up Corey's testimony in Wisdom Teachings. Each episode is as much work for me as an entire conference. You can see everything and get caught up on these shows by going to blueavians.com. It's only 99 cents for your first month of full access. Our personal subscriber numbers clearly show the vast majority of you have never actually done this. Oops. That's just a simple fact. If you sign up without using this link, Corey and I do not get paid for your subscription, so please use it if you want to experience our shows. You can also now download the shows in advance if you are one of those rare cases where there are any streaming interruptions. Major book deadline. I have also been on a crashing deadline to write an entirely new book that comes out as of this August: The Ascension Mysteries. More than ever, this book is really getting to the core of what Ascension is all about and what we need to do to prepare ourselves for it. Of course, all the writing is getting done in my copious spare time. Ahem. Never before have I had to write a book in the midst of such an intense, constantly evolving and challenging schedule. Furthermore, the content of the book is so dramatic and personal that it has triggered a full life review and profound healing process. Multiple dreams gave me an entirely different angle on what to write than what I had originally planned, and I went with it. As a result, this book will be very different from the other two and will cohere much more into a first-person narrative structure. In the midst of all of this, there have been incredible challenges to work through what the Law of One series calls negative greeting. Porter Ranch equals Deathane. The Porter Ranch methane disaster occurred in a perfect straight-line path from where my house is situated. Porter Ranch is the bald spot easily visible on the other side of the valley from where my house is. This means countless metric tons of methane were constantly blowing right over to my house on the normal, everyday wind currents. We didn't even realize this until we looked at a tourist's map on a hiking trail in the area. For some reason I thought the disaster area was a lot farther north from us, and was therefore out of our way. It wasn't. Furthermore, we were in the severe wind season as this was happening, so there was a constant blow of methane towards the house. Being up in the mountains also made the concentration much stronger. I probably should have fled, but didn't have the time or ability to do so. It wasn't plugged until mid-February. It incredibly weakened my immune system. I still am not back up to full functionality and am sick right now. Again. Given what we are hearing in the briefings, I absolutely believe this disaster was a product of deliberate sabotage and an attack on a major population center. Check out the schedule. In summary, since writing Disclosure Showdown late last November, I have had an insanely busy schedule. December. A week-long Gaia taping starting on December 1st for 8 Wisdom Teachings episodes. A severe methane-related flu that started after I went to Gaia and dragged me through absolute hell for 3 weeks. Extreme skin problems on my legs below the knees, related to methane toxicity. A methane-related rash on my neck that still hasn't gone away in one tenacious little spot. A 4-episode Ancient Aliens taping on December 17th. A 2-week writers' retreat in upstate New York to work on the Ascension Mysteries, beginning on December 21st, just as the flu ended. January. A radio appearance on Jimmy Church the day after I got back on January 4th, which I didn't even post due to how busy and tired I was. A crippling resurgence of the methane flu not long after I got back to Los Angeles and indulged in this weird little habit I call breathing. A 4-episode Ancient Aliens taping on January 15th with just barely enough health to get through it. Some El Nino rain that temporarily knocked the methane out of the air, but was far too short for what the land needed. A 2-week Gaia taping beginning on January 31st, getting me away from the methane again, 12 Cosmic Disclosure and 12 Wisdom Teachings episodes. February. Terrible, summer-level sweltering heat almost the entire month in LA, thanks to HARP shenanigans trying to kill America's food supply. 1 week to prepare for Conscious Life Expo, in which I was participating in 5 major events, 3 of which required massive new slides. Methane leak capped and blocked right after it was already too late to avoid the next round of illness from inhaling it. Another major bout of methane flu that caused most of that prep week for the expo to be lost to severe, debilitating symptoms. Last-minute rush to prepare slides with barely enough health to do it, but they were still awesome, probably the best I've ever done. 5 events at Conscious Life Expo in which I hung around for everyone to meet me, about 300 per night, and didn't sleep until 3 to 4 a.m. each time. March. Another 4-episode Ancient Aliens taping on March 1st that I had to reschedule from the day before the expo since I was too sick to do it then. Resurgence of the same accursed mega flu again 3 days ago. Still sick right now with identical but thankfully much less severe symptoms. Write personal apology and global politics articles before getting back to crashingly last-minute book deadline for March 15th. Be ready for almost instantaneous response to rewrite passes when manuscript comes back from the publisher. The final deadline. It has been less than a week since the last Ancient Aliens taping, which again was like a PhD dissertation, 150 references, worth of material. I now have the final, do or die deadline with the book publisher for on or around March 15th. If I don't make it, the release will be pushed ahead to the spring. That is not going to happen. Writing stuff like this article helps get me warmed up and ready to do my absolute best quality work. I have a terrific outline and 200 pages to go. It will go quickly and I can probably push 40 pages a day for 5 days and make the deadline. Your positive wishes and prayers of support are well appreciated, and actually do help ensure success thanks to the power of consciousness. The final sprint. The publisher has already given feedback on the first 312 pages. I have been told it is quite a powerful, remarkable, and inspirational work of art. You can help out by pre-ordering the Ascension Mysteries hardcover now, so we guarantee another debut on the New York Times list, which is critical for credibility. The ebook orders are cool for clickable references and portable travel, but they do not count towards the bestseller list we are shooting for. Several people have told me the parts of the Synchronicity Key they liked the most were the personal sections. In this case, the majority of the book is personal sections. All the information is woven into a narrative of who I met and what I learned from them. The toughest problem I am having in this case is writing a simpler and more accessible book considering what the others have been like. I have finally cleared enough space in my schedule that I don't have another Gaia taping until the second week of April, so I can really focus for once. Someone could legitimately argue that I shouldn't even be taking the time to write up all of this stuff for you right now, nor to finish the other article. However, the real challenge is making sure I don't get so busy with everything else going on that the public side of my work gets wiped out here on this site. Let me explain something. The Law of One is a series of 106 question and answer sessions with an alleged ET intelligence from 1981 to 1984. Both of my previous books are detailed scientific analyses and verifications of hundreds of specific data points revealed throughout the material. If you are a scholar of the Law of One series, then you will be familiar with the term negative greeting. I think it is very important to explain what this is, and how strongly it is affecting both Corey and me at this time. As an overview, the Law of One teaches us that we are all constantly being influenced by both positive and negative spiritual beings. When we have positive thoughts, positive beings will strengthen and enhance those thoughts. When we have negative thoughts, negative beings will strengthen and enhance those thoughts. Furthermore, the negative will be allowed to create destructive karma in our lives, but only to the degree that we authorize it by our own free will. The tricky part is that once you dedicate your life to a spiritual mission, as I have done for 20 years now, the standards for negative greeting become extremely high. If you are out there with 5 different television shows that raise consciousness, you are wide open to every negative greeting imaginable. It doesn't seem to make any sense to the uninitiated. For someone who is not aware of how this works, it seems utterly crazy. What do you mean, negative beings? Give me a break. You are a rambling, schizophrenic madman. Did someone forget to change your dignity pants today in the ward? One of the Cabal's favorite sayings is, the devil's greatest trick is convincing humanity he doesn't exist. There is no one devil, per se, but there absolutely are negative ETS out there who need us to create lush for their own survival. Lush is the energy we generate when we are self-centered, materialistic, manipulative, controlling, angry, sad, fearful, jealous or depressed. If we try to extract value from others rather than creating our own value, we are pulling lush from them, which is then redirected to negative beings. Once we get full disclosure, we will find out that negative beings have been using Earth as a fear farm for at least 375,000 years. They can and will be defeated once we go through a quantum leap into social memory, also called fourth density love. This is determined solely by the level of our mass consciousness and has no exact timeline of when it will occur. The first distortion, free will. The universe is a benevolent, positive place. The negative is allowed to exist and do what it does thanks to the first distortion of free will. This means that the most important principle, or distortion of the Law of One, is the preservation of free will, or what most people call karma. This balancing effect occurs both individually and collectively, and is practiced and upheld with meticulous, mathematical precision. Whatever we create for others must be experienced in our own lives either positively or negatively. That's the way it works. There is only one of us here, one identity in the cosmos. Therefore whatever we create for others is something we are creating for ourselves. Due to the nature of the illusion of physical existence, these balancing effects will be seemingly random until you start to figure out what is going on. The stakes get much higher. The more you are working for the greater good in a spiritual mission, the more exacting and difficult the stakes will be. This means that every single deviation from a Christ-like level of purity, patience, simplicity, humility, compassion, and forgiveness will be aggressively balanced. Until you have truly reached that place where every thought is a loving thought, and I am definitely not there yet, all kinds of greetings are authorized. We are all seeing this happen on a planetary level with all the craziness going on. It seems to be getting worse and worse all the time. Porter Ranch is one of many examples of something that was actually authorized to occur as part of our collective wake-up call. The speed of noteworthy events appearing on the world stage seems to just ratchet up more and more, and we haven't even seen the big stuff yet. Thankfully, enough of us are pushing for the positive that some very major steps in that direction are arriving imminently. There is 100% agreement between intuitive data, insider testimony, and real-world metrics to support this argument. Sadly, I haven't had anywhere near enough time to put all the pieces together, with provable data, in articles on this site. I hope to change that soon. Some Law of One examples. Carla Ruckert, the instrument who spoke the words of the Law of One in trance, chose pre-incarnative distortions of ill health before she was even born. This led to a severe kidney disorder that gave her crippling arthritis and prevented her from doing what most people would do with their lives. It was explained that she made this choice so she would be far more inclined to pursue a spiritual path of seeking in that lifetime, which she did. During the Law of One sessions, her health concerns from these same lifelong issues were constantly under attack by negative forces. If she deviated from pure love in her waking thoughts, day by day, negative entities could dramatically worsen her symptoms, including arthritic pain. Furthermore, the thoughts of each member of the group were constantly under attack, attempting to amplify any disharmony or negativity. Thus, the group was told to guard your alignments carefully and to preserve harmony above all else. Physical attacks against the machinery used to tape the sessions were also routine. Hence they had to use 3 independent cassette recorders. Jim McCarty positioning 3 different microphones before a Law of One session. Damaging physical accidents. Carla was also told that the 5th density negative companion or entity doing all of this was trying to influence her to step in front of an oncoming car in traffic. If it was successful, she would have either been severely injured or would have died from it. This is exactly what happened to my ex-girlfriend Sabrina in May 2001, right after we attended the Disclosure Project headed by Dr. Stephen Greer in DC. Not surprisingly, I lost all braking power in DC rush hour traffic on the way there, and still managed to get there using the clutch to slow the car. After the event, someone in a huge SUV stopped for her to walk across Atlantic Avenue. She was hit by another guy trying to zoom around him at 35 miles per hour. She flew 30 feet through the air, landed on the pavement and suffered multiple compound fractures, lacerations and a traumatic brain injury. She nearly died from the impact and required pints of blood transfusions. When I saw her in the ER, her face was white and her lips were blue. She did thankfully have a full recovery but required a titanium rod to be screwed into her leg in order to walk again. The Law of One group was told the only way they could stop the negative greetings from happening would be to stop doing the work. They did not. Nor have I. Then why haven't you been killed? This raises a good question. If my ex-girlfriend could be brought within inches of her life 15 years ago, then why am I still alive? The answer is that this is a spiritual battle. No matter how much the cabal dislikes it, they cannot whack you unless they are authorized to do so. In order to get authorization, they have to present you with various temptations that cause you to deviate sufficiently from the message you share. I will be the first to admit that every time I write something on this site, particularly if it is of heavy geopolitical importance, I get hit very hard. Therefore, when I have so much other stuff going on at the same time, with deadlines, illnesses, and whatnot, there is only so much of this I can take. For this same reason I have essentially been doing a social media blackout and telegraphing my thoughts and moves as little as possible lately. However, no matter how clean of a game I run, there are still plenty of things that make it through the net and are authorized to occur. As I said to Corey recently, it feels like both of us are Frodo in Lord of the Rings. The nature of the battle is so bizarre that we can barely even talk about it. Telepathic tools are available. In some of our episodes of Cosmic Disclosure, Corey revealed an ET-based technology the upper levels of the Cabal possess called Voice of God. This allows dreams, thoughts, and even verbal messages to be implanted in people's minds, but only if they are authorizing it in the universal sense. It is still absolutely possible to get good, clean intuitive data. This is a universal law, and is part of the first distortion that is described in the Law of One series. The security protocol requires that you only seek your intuitive information in a loving, uplifting, Christ-like state of consciousness. You should never seek intuitive data when you are sick, tired, thirsty, hungry, sad, angry, fearful, depressed, or jealous. You will get negative information. Sadly, the vast majority of channeling is mixed with positive, negative, and conscious mind data all blended together, as a result of this phenomenon. Voice of God tech can also be used on unsuspecting people to amplify their negative thoughts and actions for a specific, desired outcome against a target. This may seem hard to believe, but I have a confession to make. It will sound crazy, but I swear upon all things holy that I am absolutely telling you the truth. Nice build up, what now? For years now, and particularly since about 2010 when Ancient Aliens started, I have suffered profoundly every time I try to write an article on this website. To be specific, all matter of bizarre and horrible negativity is mobilized against me. It usually comes in the form of specific attacks from individuals. Over the years I have done my very best to try to reduce or eliminate all possible access points for how this could happen. And I did not complain when it did. This strategy did cause excessive isolation. Most recently it also involved an information blackout to further try to prevent anyone knowing when I am writing. Nonetheless, this system works so well that as soon as I start trying to write something for the site, the clock begins ticking. I say nothing online or to anyone about what I am going to do. Either way, I still only have a few hours before I am going to get hit, very hard. You could say this is a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I have done everything possible to stay positive and eliminate all other variables. It still happens. It works so well that I have been able to rule out all prosaic explanations long ago. And I strongly dislike the fact that it works so well. Notice the frequency of posting. The problem got markedly worse after 2012. Thus, in the early years I tried to post every week. Then it became every 2 weeks. After 2012, it was often only once a month. And in the last 2 years even that level of sacrifice has been too difficult to maintain. Every article you have ever read on this site has come before, during and after a series of seemingly unrelated and very upsetting personal events. It really is like being in a twisted, supernatural movie. It is totally metaphysical, totally negative, totally bizarre, and totally real. I very much dislike it, but it is astonishingly consistent, almost perfect. If I don't write, the pain noticeably goes down and life is easier to tolerate for those periods of time. If my goal was making money and having an ego, as paid trolls suggest, failing to write for a month at a time does not assist those goals whatsoever. I have been through so much fear, so many times now, that I have finally lost the drama and story around things that used to terrify me. Essentially I have become numbed out to any and all threats, even if they are lethal in nature. I hear it all the time and yet the work goes on. Here's just one crazy example for you to savor. As one of countless crazy examples, I once illegally parked behind Ted's Montana Grill to run in and grab a bison burger order with Corey in the car. This was on our first day of taping of Cosmic Disclosure on our first visit. Corey was already very nervous about being on camera. I was gone for about 90 seconds. By the time I came back, an aggressive woman had forced herself into the car and screamed in Corey's face. She had both knees on the driver's seat, was screaming, pointing and cursing in his face, and slammed off the ignition on our rental car with a series of jabs. She got out and was calling the police on her phone. Good luck with that. When I saw what was going on, ran in, locked the door and started the car. She screamed in my face and tried to smash out the glass on my driver's side window as I sped off. She was a very large and aggressive woman. I smiled, waved, and said bye, we love you, as we sped off. I have been through so many of these types of events by now that it barely even fazed me. I was absolutely astonished that a very mild 90-second breaking of a parking law could have authorized such a massive, violent, and instantaneous attack. How in God's name could someone have been sent in and taken such violent action in just a matter of seconds during a seemingly random pit stop? We better be like frickin' Boy Scouts on these trips from now on, I told him. We can't leave the slightest cracks in the armor for the negative to exploit. A veritable minefield. Every taping we have done of Cosmic Disclosure has been a veritable minefield of impossibly outrageous and baffling events of this type. The one example I shared above may stretch your beliefs too much to think it is more than a coincidence. Now imagine 5 of these. 10. 15. 100. Several hundred. Imagine it being as reliable and consistent as gravity year after year. Corey has dealt with either crippling pain or massive illness every time we have taped, as well as all the other bizarre negative things I am referring to here. He has been recovering from surgeries, cracked a tooth apart in his mouth, had all manner of hostile confrontations and got severe food poisoning the last time. In my own case, all I have to do is try to write an article. I must admit that it works so well I have now become conditioned like Pavlov's dogs to expect a wild natural disaster in my personal life every time. It's Pavlovian, dude. Pavlov was the scientist who rang a bell every time he fed some dogs in the lab. After a while the dogs would salivate when the bell rang, even with no food. This is called Pavlovian conditioning. The bell rings as soon as I start typing, just like I'm doing now. And that ringing noise means get ready. Here it comes. It is a lot easier for me not to write, since I know I will go through hell on earth as soon as I start. So I usually only put myself through it once a month lately. One of the tricks I use is to do it spontaneously, with no prior planning, and try to finish it within a few hours, since that's about all the time I get. I will say that I have gotten quite good at guitar while all of this has been going on, since I can practice 4 hours a day with no attacks whatsoever. The negative greetings have been so powerful, so frightening and so absolutely precise in execution that I now have a Pavlovian block against posting. This includes very real and ongoing death threats from any of a variety of cabal crime syndicate groups that are furious with the expose I publish here. This is in addition to countless other intrusive and upsetting events that seem entirely metaphysical and non-local in nature. No more hiding. My new book discusses my addiction history. Addicts hide things. I do not want to hide this anymore. I sincerely hope telling you the truth will help set me free. It is weird and seemingly impossible, and few will believe me, but it is also very real. The effect it has had on me has been incredibly, crushingly demoralizing. Hopefully telling you about it will help to break the spell. Why did I wait so many years to talk about this? There has been a lot of shame around it. I know how ridiculous, foolish, and impossible it sounds. I have always tried to beat it, to overcome it, To ignore it and not talk about it? Nonetheless, it is very much a part of my reality. So here is the bottom line. I have now concluded that no matter how much of an information blackout I perform, the same system works just as precisely. Even after leaving no visible traces whatsoever of what I am doing, the negative greetings still slam me at precisely the right moments. Every time. It is literally a mathematically perfect fact that I will get hammered as soon as I start working. There is no point in even wondering or hoping for the opposite. It only seems to be metaphysical and therefore implausible because we do not understand the technology, and the beings that implement it. Every type of weird, negative, and terrifying event imaginable just starts happening all around me as soon as I sit down and actually try to work. The people who bring this to me are completely unaware that they are being influenced in any way. Yet the timing is far too precise to be happenstance. So even though I have been very busy these last 100 days, I have been resting up for the next big push, where I will jam through this much more often. Time to push through it. This Pavlovian attack system has become so absolutely, unflinchingly reliable that I give up. I am not going to hide from you or anyone else anymore about this. I am not going to act like an addict and conceal the truth of what I am going through. I am just going to blast through this, suffer whatever I have to suffer since it happens anyway, and actually go back to getting things done more often. I will continue to take whatever steps I need to take, no matter how seemingly sad they may be, to ensure that this work is protected above all else. This may sound melodramatic, but your comments consistently tell us how important you feel this work is for our future. I do my very best to live up to that. No effort can be spared. This work requires the 100% dedication of myself and everyone else around me. Period. Love is important, but it has to be love with boundaries. Learning to protect myself has been the hardest lesson of all, since I do not want to disappoint anyone. We are right on the verge of a massive victory. Now is the time. If we do not act now, we will lose the window and get partial disclosure. Everything I have ever worked on, my entire life, is all coming to a head over the next few months based on what we are hearing. The window could be longer than that, but we really don't know. The intel is not that specific. What is the key to getting through this? I thought I knew what the Ascension Mysteries was going to be when I started writing it and sold the outline to the publisher. It has since evolved into something that is far more spring-loaded in the sense of its power to heal you as you read it. Writing this book for me has involved going through all the parts of my story that I omitted in the past because they were embarrassing and unflattering. There are whole chunks of my life that I edited out in anything I wrote on this site because the memories were too painful. This includes the depths of my addiction from ages 15 to 19, after a young lifetime of horrific and violent bullying. However, as it turns out, there is a remarkable story of spiritual contact occurring all throughout these darkest periods. That is now a major focus of what this book is about. That is why the publisher is saying it is so amazingly transformative. I am linking the personal bullying with the global villain in our script and illustrating how discovering this relationship and healing it is the key to ascension. Identifying and closing off the access points. On the personal level, I am looking at everything going on now and systematically identifying how these buried traumas have been reiterating in the present. In the process, I believe that I am well on my way to deactivating all of the major portals through which this crippling effect has been continuing to occur. I do believe that if I can really cover all the bases with this, it will become vastly easier for me to get much more work done, much more often. I have also had a major philosophical aha that for you, the reader, may feel more like told ya, dum-dum. Sometimes the most obvious things for everyone else to see are the most difficult things for the individual who is suffering to observe. In short, I now believe that my efforts to protect myself from negative greeting by not writing have been authorizing those negative greetings to occur when I do. Granted, there is an initial top-off every time I get back to work, but once I get consistent, there is evidence that the greetings become far less effective. So that is where I have decided that everything needs to go now. It is very simple, but it makes a great deal of sense. Everything in my life lately, including these perpetual illnesses, seem to be telling me the exact same message. So hopefully now I will get better faster. Thankfully the negative can only do its magic for so long. I have also noticed over the last 20 years that if an individual or group is bringing in negativity, they can only do this for so long before it collapses in on them. Karma catches up with the people who become the instruments of negative greeting through their control, manipulation, and selfishness in a major way. I recently created a list of the biggest cases since 1996, and came up with at least 9 different major examples of tremendous karmic backlash that occurred. If someone pushes it far enough, and consciously chooses to be manipulative, controlling and unloving, time eventually runs out and the system collapses. Since these are personal examples, I cannot go into detail. The important point here is that these laws also work on the collective level. Karma is coming home to roost. Big time. You are about to see the fireworks start to go off in the global sense. Fighting for full disclosure. The most shocking intel to arrive in the last few months has been that the Earth-based alliance is trending towards accepting a partial disclosure timeline. I do believe Corey is having genuine experiences with cosmic beings who determine our fate here on Earth. His data corresponds with what many others have told me, and I have had countless intuitive validations as well. They told him in no uncertain terms that if we do not pull together as an alternative community, we will get the partial disclosure timeline. How will it start? The partial disclosure timeline requires very large-scale events to happen very quickly. In order for this to occur, a certain sequence of catalysts are expected. We are expecting a relatively sudden, dramatic collapse of the euro, the US dollar and the too big to fail megabanks. For a period of time, it may be that any money you have in the bank will be inaccessible and or nearly worthless. It will be returned after the dust settles. Silver is currently around $15 per ounce coin. This is due to cabal price fixing and manipulation. It costs $26 to manufacture a silver ounce coin. Silver may go as high as $400, at least for a period of time, and insiders recommend it as your best bet to secure assets right now. Gold is now 81 times more pricey than silver at the same weight, which is an all-time high in history. So silver is a much better buy than gold right now. Some degree of rioting and violence is expected to occur when people lose their money, and this depends upon the overall level of public outrage. The negative groups are hoping for large-scale loss of life when this happens. It is very likely not going to turn out that way, but there probably will be some. The blackout. At some point we lose power and internet access, at least throughout America and possibly Europe, for up to 2 to 3 weeks. Most people are in a blackout. You do want to make sure you have whatever you need on hand to get through that much time with storable food, water, supplies, and books to read. That being said, I highly recommend that you not panic. That creates exactly the type of energy that will anchor in the negative timeline. I have done what I need to do to prepare. It is possible that nothing may happen. I have already eaten through a previous round of storable food. During the blackout there will be small-scale but intense military conflicts between opposing groups in many, if not most major American and European cities. Both sides of these skirmishes are already in position now and waiting for it to start. Multiple insiders have confirmed this. Without going into too much detail, these battles will likely focus on areas where the cabal and its assets are the most concentrated. Most of the targeted people inside will be brought out in handcuffs and arrested, not shot and killed, as this happens. When the lights come back on, everything will have changed. The controlled media will be telling a completely different story. Even in the partial timeline, it will appear at first as if everything we have worked so hard to achieve on this side has actually happened. What will the partial disclosure timeline look like? Although nothing is solid, and plans are completely flexible and ready to change at a moment's notice, here are the most likely outcomes in the aftermath. It will include 9/11's truth and the arrests of many high-level people we will be happy to see get brought to justice. It will include a financial system reboot, and very likely some sort of tribute payments to everyone who was screwed by the system. It will include the gradual release of forbidden technologies, including clean energy, anti-gravity and some new health breakthroughs. It will include the revealing of a lower-level military space program that already has the ability to travel around our solar system in cool new ships. It will include, maybe not at first, the revealing of an ancient builder race that left artifacts behind in our solar system millions of years ago. It will attempt to include the idea that there are no living ETs visiting us now, and anything we thought we were seeing is the work of the now-defeated Cabal. The first and second episodes of the X-Files miniseries reboot were a veritable manifesto for the partial disclosure rollout. The rest were relatively unrelated. Imagine the surprise. The Cabal groups are furious with Corey and me for interfering with this partial disclosure timeline. They would kill us if they could get it authorized. They are already grooming whistleblowers who will come forward as the heroic cosmic astronauts of a new age. Imagine the public's surprise when they are shown new ships, told these are the UFOs everyone has been seeing, and watch films of them traveling through the solar system. Imagine the surprise of having them decloak in our skies and take certain selected witnesses from Earth on board to see it and film it for themselves. Imagine the surprise of finally knowing, on a collective level, that we are not alone in the universe and ancient aliens built all kinds of structures in the solar system. Imagine the first day that someone from here gets to walk through these ruins in a spacesuit, while it is filmed and beamed back to Earth for all to marvel at. Imagine the volumes of new information that people will be able to binge on, as they accepted real truth, trademark, once this all happens. The bad guys go to jail, everyone gets a decent chunk of money, and we are all distracted by an incredible news story spurring endless internet flame wars. Meanwhile, business as usual continues, with the Cabal groups continuing to work behind the scenes for another 100 years of gradual rollout. Greater attacks than ever before. Frankly, I do not see how it is even possible that they can get away with this, considering how much is already out there to know. In particular, their apparent plan to say there are no ETs here now, or at least none since Roswell, is completely outrageous. The simple fact that cosmic disclosure already exists as a show for anyone to watch should make it almost impossible for this plan to work. Corey has been brought in and interrogated by these lower-level military space program groups using methods that force him to tell the truth. They were shocked to realize that he was not lying about the things he said. They have no idea. The lower-level secret space program has absolutely no idea that the greater space program actually exists. They have been lied to for generations. This is the nature of compartmentalization. There was a plan in place for many years to eventually have these guys come forward in a partial disclosure. Again, all of this may seem ridiculous to you right now. Just remember how you felt when you were reading all of this once you see these events actually appearing in the headlines. Again, I wish I had enough time and enough stamina to document every single scrap of the voluminous proof that this is coming our way. This really is a shadow World War III between the Alliance countries, which are the vast majority, and the Cabal. The mega article I am nearly finished with after whatever negative greetings ensue goes into a lot more detail. The powers that were are counting on stories like this not being popular enough to make a difference once they do the revealing. The alternative is pretty sucky. Together, we can stop this megacon job from happening. And we must. The initial phases of it will very likely occur no matter what. The real key is in what happens after the lights come back on. If we end up on the partial disclosure timeline, the sphere beings now visiting us will hold off the ascension event for an eon, which could be 100 years or more. The spheres they came in with are powerful enough to prevent this event from occurring until our mass collective free will authorizes it. This has absolutely shocked me. I take it very seriously. If we get the full disclosure timeline, the most commonly viewed window for this mass consciousness/energetic shift has been 2017 to 2018. The science for it occurring around this time frame is very solid. It has been the ongoing theme in much of my work, including the source field investigations and the synchronicity key. The new book will go into the specifics of the spontaneous ascension model like never before. You are directly involved. You are not a passive participant watching this all take place from your chair. You are directly involved in whether we get full or partial disclosure. Full disclosure will open up everything there is to know about the real space program, all the ETS that are out there and all the Star Trek type tech we already have. Full disclosure will lead to a magnificent transformation of our culture into a Star Trek society in a matter of months, complete with Stargate travel and materializers. The level of technology, new information, and cosmic contacts will be countless orders of magnitude greater than on the partial timeline. I do not believe we were told about the difference between the partial and full disclosure timelines if we were doomed to fail this test. I think it is very likely that there are many ways we can win the full disclosure, and it really just takes each of us caring enough to do something about it. This changed my talks completely. Going through all these personal upheavals and illnesses made me realize that I am being targeted for a very important reason. The work I have done, and am doing, can make a difference in what happens out there in the real world. As a result, I made last-minute changes to each of the 3 major talks I gave all across the board. Each of them were 3 to 3.5 hours in length, and professionally filmed by Streaming for the Soul. It is a total of about 10 hours of new material. Some examples. First of all, I put together over 275 slides for my live audience debut with Corey Good and summarized his entire testimony in one big data dump. This actually went over remarkably well, and caused a huge sensation in the audience. It included a variety of provable data points that helped to validate the things he said. Secondly, I changed the next talk's title to The Science of the Secret Space Program in order to debunk the partial disclosure nonsense. This included giving extensive proof for the idea that ET life is very abundant throughout the universe and therefore we are surrounded by intelligent civilizations. This ended up joining together with the third talk on the science of ascension in a 1-2 combination punch. Both talks presented a holographic, fractal model of the universe that is much more robust than anything I have ever done before, in one concise package. The data is complex, but very much worth it. I had several stunning new scientific breakthroughs in putting the second and third talks together that I am very excited about. None of these existed until those last few hours before I actually went on stage and delivered the material. I was definitely guided to see many different connections I had missed in the past. The effect it had on the audiences was quite incredible. People were waiting in line for up to 3 hours just to tell me how much they appreciated it after I finished speaking. I pulled together data that had been sitting around for 10 or 20 years without being used, and integrated it into a grand synthesis like never before. Many different long-term veterans of my work came up at the end and told me this was the best presentation I had ever given, the summation of all my work. The streaming is priced well below a typical conference. You can access all 3 of these videos for $144, a sizable discount from what everyone paid to see them live. My all-weekend events used to cost twice this much, and these talks have even more information jammed into 10 hours than I used to give in 16. There is new material in all 3 of the talks, even though certain themes keep getting honed, improved, and refined as I go on. I have done online conferences twice before, but these were only single 2-hour events at $45. This is a much greater collection all at once. Thankfully, in this case the majority of revenue goes directly towards helping us fight for full disclosure. This new material will continue appearing in other forms as time goes on, but these videos are high quality and ready to go right now. Click on this link and then click on the following graphic to go down the rabbit hole and get started right away. We thank you for your support. If we do get the full disclosure timeline, money will no longer be necessary. Right for now it still is. This is a 100% grassroots effort and your support is highly appreciated. It is a major part of stepping up and joining the fight rather than watching on the sidelines. With knowledge and information comes power and the ability to prevent the powers that were from taking advantage of a major, imminent upheaval. I absolutely believe the reason I keep